Discovering my son-in-law's shocking betrayal. One incredible revelation in my second home. Maggie felt a chill run down her spine as she dug through the decades-old boxes in her father's ranch, uncovering remnants of a life filled with love and sacrifice. The summer sun streamed through the large kitchen window, illuminating motes of dust and the age-worn creaky floor beneath her feet. She was supposed to be enjoying this time with Emma and Jake as they renovated their future family gathering spot, but the nagging feeling in her gut suggested this was no ordinary project. The gravity of her discovery loomed over her. Could Jake really be harboring ulterior motives? Unease festered as she recalled the signs, the little things that seemed like mere quirks then, but now appeared as warning flags. Emma had always adored Jake. He was charming in the way that made folks feel special, but Maggie sensed shadows lurking behind his bright smile. What family could help but be swept into the dreams he spun so effortlessly? Yet every moment she observed the way he interacted with her daughter, the smirks, the calculated charm, her relentless pursuit of answers brought only more questions. She shook her head, continuously wrestling with despair. How could it be true? The man who vowed to love Emma might be twisting familial trust for his own gain. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Maggie stood before the weathered oak tree in the yard, a sentinel to her family's history. It was meant to be a backdrop for fond memories, but it transformed into the ultimate battleground of betrayal. The notes and documents she had unearthed whispered secrets that entangled her heart with dread. With every tick of the clock, her conflict deepened. How could she disrupt Emma's happiness, tearing down the very foundation they had just built? Yet, how could she stand by and watch Jake's deceit potentially unravel her family's legacy? A storm brewed inside her, clouding her vision. Maggie couldn't shake the feeling that by keeping this secret, she risked not just her daughter's dreams, but the ethical backbone of everything she had fought for in her career. Caught between loyalty and truth, her internal turmoil erupted. Every second felt like an eternity as her heart raced and her thoughts collided. She could confront Jake, exposing him for who he really was. But what if it shattered Emma irrevocably? Guilt crept into the corners of her mind, whispering that perhaps her judgments about Jake were colored by the shadows of her own insecurities. She wanted to protect the family legacy, but how could she sacrifice her daughter's joy for it? The weight of her realization drew heavy on her shoulders as she approached the confrontation with trembling hands, ready to unveil Jake's deceit. Just as she took a deep breath to summon her courage, the words caught in her throat. A gaping chasm of uncertainty opened wide. What would she choose to do? In that moment beneath the old oak tree, she realized the foundation of her family's love stood at the brink of unraveling. The path ahead was shrouded in darkness, leaving her with only one haunting question. Would she dare to confront the truth? The daylight began to wane, casting long shadows across the yard as Maggie contemplated her next move. Time seemed suspended as she stood there, heart racing and pulse quickening with every tick of the clock in the background. She felt stripped of her usual confidence, her steadfastness. The sunlight no longer felt warm. It mocked her hesitation with its casual brilliance. Clutching the faded notes, Maggie sifted through her emotions. Doubt twisted around her like a vine, choking her reasoning. What if confronting Jake only elicited defensive aggression? Or worse, what if it fractured the fragile happiness Emma found in her relationship? Maggie thought of her daughter, vibrant and alive, the light of her life. Would the truth shine brighter than the facade Jake had built? Or would it extinguish Emma's joy altogether? Her instincts screamed for her to dig deeper, to reconcile these strange discrepancies she'd learned of Jake's past. He was known for his charisma, yet the pieces of his past raised a tapestry of deceit that she couldn't ignore. The thought of unraveling this mystery filled her with a determination she hadn't felt in years. A fierce maternal instinct battling against the fear of damaging the very fabric of their family. And yet, there was this other part of her that recoiled at the thought of being the bad guy. Confrontation had never been her strong suit. In her profession, she had thrived by fostering harmony among colleagues and clients. Always the mediator, she feared plunging into this ethical abyss would brand her a villain. She took a moment to breathe, allowing the weight of her role as an investigator to settle within her. The truth was, it was high time she sharpened her resolve. This wasn't merely about confronting a potential traitor, but about igniting her own fire, a fire forged from her years of building her career, from setting boundaries, and from guarding her family's legacy. As much as she fought against it, she recognized it was her own career-driven nature that could fuel this confrontation. Years spent navigating intricate networks of people had honed her intuition. It was finally time to apply this to her personal life. With eyes set on the porch where Jake usually rested after a long day, she felt a surge of clarity. There was no room for cowardice when stakes were this high. She plotted her first step, mapping out her approach like a seasoned negotiator, weighing every word. What was needed was a semblance of control amidst the uncertainty of the situation. She would call him out, and let her intuition guide her response. Resolutely, she stepped away from the oak tree, leaving its shade behind. The resolve to confront Jake ignited a different kind of clarity in her. She could feel the solid ground beneath her feet again. As she crossed the threshold into the house, Maggie sought out Jake, her heart steadying. Yet as she neared, the sound of muffled laughter wafted through the air, and for a brief moment, her determination wavered. Was that Emma's laughter intertwined with Jake's? Chilled and conflicted, she hesitated at the entrance, poised to confront him, but suddenly, something deeper pierced through her uncertainty. The realization that loyalty often came at the price of silence. Just as Maggie steadied herself for the confrontation, a thought struck her with a jolt. What if Jake wasn't the master manipulator she envisioned, but rather a pawn in a much bigger game? A game that involved not only Emma, but all she held dear. She would have to dig deeper still. For the truth could be more intricate than betrayal alone. Could the facade of familial love mask an even greater hidden betrayal? With each breath, she felt the escalating excitement and fear collide within her, driving her toward a reckoning she had not anticipated. Now more than ever, she realized the truth was not just a destination but a journey, and she would have to brace herself for whatever lay on the other side. The moment of decision loomed larger than ever, and so did the question. Would she uncover the secrets that bound them, even if they unraveled everything she thought she knew? Maggie took a deep breath, stepping into the house where the laughter echoed like a taunting reminder of her inner turmoil. Every step she took towards the living room felt like a hesitant advance into enemy territory. Those giggles from Emma had been pure, untainted joy. Yet now they felt like fragile glass, threatening to shatter at the first sign of conflict. She squeezed the notes in her hand until her knuckles turned white, searching for a reservoir of courage amidst the chaos of her thoughts. As she entered the room, she caught sight of Emma and Jake sprawled comfortably on the couch, their laughter filling the air with warmth. In that instant, brown-eyed Emma caught her gaze, her expression morphing into one of curiosity. Jake, oblivious, continued telling a story, his animated gestures a stark contrast to the storm brewing inside Maggie. What would she find behind that charming facade? The notes began to feel heavier in her hands, as if they bore the weight of all her fears and convictions. The softened laugh of her daughter struck a dissonant chord within her, igniting the maternal instinct that had always ruled her life, the protection of Emma at all costs. "Hey, you two," Maggie said, forcing a cheerful tone albeit strained. "What's the joke?" Their laughter halted, but Jake quickly recovered, turning his wide smile on Maggie. "Just sharing some old stories," he replied, his voice rich with affection. Yet beneath the surface, Maggie sensed an undercurrent of something more insidious. Feeling a twinge of guilt for interrupting, Maggie glanced at Emma, whose blue eyes sparkled with delight, blissfully unaware of the danger lurking just beneath the surface. It pained her to think that a simple conversation could disrupt the unity they had built, but she could no longer silence the doubt creeping into her mind. "Can we talk for a second, Jake?" The words felt foreign tumbling out of her mouth, yet she surprised herself with the firmness behind them. Emma's brow furrowed, an inkling of concern shadowing the earlier joy. "Of course, Maggie. Just give me a minute," Jake said, rising from the couch, his demeanor undeterred. He followed her to the kitchen with an ease that belied the tension coursing through Maggie's veins. In the relative quiet of the kitchen, Maggie leaned against the counter, a battleground of emotions brewing within her. She could hear the faint laughter still resonating from the living room, an unsettling reminder of what was at stake. The atmosphere thickened, and she questioned every syllable as her resolve began to crystallize. "Jake," she began, her voice steady yet cautious. "I need to ask you about your past, about the rumors happening around town." She watched as his expression shifted, his smile faltering for just a moment before he regained composure. "What rumors?" He deflected. The ease in his voice felt rehearsed, and for the first time, Maggie questioned not just his words but his intentions. She had navigated similar situations in her career, skillfully dissecting truths from deceptions. Now the roles reversed. She was unearthing the deception within her own home. "Rumors about your previous life, things left unexplained." Each word dripped with urgency, yet she could feel the boundary of her personal ethics teetering on the brink of collapse. Jake stepped closer, a challenge unfolding in his gaze. "Maggie, you know how small towns are. Don't believe everything you hear." The atmosphere crackled between them, pulses of confrontation sending shockwaves through Terry's previously calm spine. At that moment, a revelation struck Maggie. This confrontation was not just about Jake's secrets. It was also about her choices, her commitments, and how far she would go to uphold the illusion of perfection in the family she had always cherished. Suddenly, the memory of Emma's laughter morphed into a haunting soundtrack, emphasizing the stakes at play. Would she unravel the web to protect what really mattered? With a renewed determination, she faced Jake. "Then help me understand." "Help us," she urged, each word weighted with the responsibility she embraced as a mother. She needed to know if the very foundation of their family was built on lies. And in doing so, she would discover not just about Jake but about herself. The moment hung in the air, thick with tension as the unspoken question lingered. Would the truth shatter their family, or could it breathe new life into the relationships she'd fought so hard to protect? Maggie's heart raced as she stood before Jake, the silence wrapping around them like a suffocating shroud. Her mind raced with possibilities, scenarios spinning wildly. This confrontation could lead to an unraveling or a moment of clarity. With each breath, she felt the weight of her choices pressing harder against her chest. "Why won't you just tell me?" she pressed, drawing on her years of experience navigating tough corporate negotiations. She had interrogated countless clients and employees, always aiming for transparency because truth was pivotal to trust, and now, here she was, craving that same honesty from the man she had welcomed into her family. Jake's features hardened, the warmth that had initially graced his smile vanishing behind walls that had clearly been built long before their conversation began. "Maggie, you don't know what you're asking for. It's not that simple." "It's never simple, is it?" She met his challenging gaze, feeling the tremors of power shift in her favor. "But if we want to move forward, if I am to protect Emma, then I need to know the truth." Jake looked away, the muscles in his jaw tightening, and it was her moment. She leaned in slightly, closing the physical gap between them. "Do you want this life? With us? If you do, then you owe it to us to be honest." There was a flicker of vulnerability in his eyes, a glimpse of the man she married for more than his charm. "You really think knowing everything will make it better?" he asked, his voice laced with a mixture of frustration and desperation. "Yes," she responded firmly, the conviction echoing not just in her words but in the very core of her being. "Not knowing is worse. It gnaws at the soul." In that second, something shifted either in Jake or within her. Maggie could see the internal struggle etched on his face. Did he sense that this moment was finite, a pivot point in their lives? If things continued down this path, she could either salvage this relationship or expose the fissures that might fracture it beyond repair. He inhaled deeply, perhaps summoning courage or a last-ditch effort to maintain his facade. "Fine. I'll share a part of my past," he finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. "But you might not like what you hear." Before he could continue, Maggie felt a wave of fear crash over her. Would he reveal something so damaging that even her resolve couldn't withstand it? The remnants of her confidence melded with concern for Emma, and she wrestled with a sudden rush of doubt. "Whatever it is, I can handle it," she asserted, forcing back the rising tide of anxiety. She needed to believe her own words, to anchor herself amidst this tumult. If there was a chance, no matter how small, that Jake could turn the truth into something palatable, she had to take the risk. The room felt charged as Jake began to recount stories she had never heard before, pieces of the puzzle that painted a picture of a life filled with regret, shadows of mistakes that haunted him. Each revelation chipped away at the sturdy structure of memories she had built around their life together. And as details poured out, Maggie realized she was on the brink of a deeper understanding. Yet, with every word came a new uncertainty. Would this knowledge fortify her home? Or would it crack the foundation entirely? As his confession unraveled, Maggie could feel the stirrings of something profound within her, a wellspring of self-awareness springing forth, challenging her perception of loyalty, forgiveness, and the complexities of love. "Do you really think you could keep this from me forever?" she probed, not out of anger but a fervent desire for clarity. Would she emerge from this conversation not just as Jake's wife, but as someone transformed, capable of making difficult choices? And at that moment, standing at the precipice of their future, she realized her own development was tied intrinsically to this exchange. The truth would either liberate her, or ensnare her deeper into the tangled web of their lives. As whispers of his past filled the kitchen air, Maggie couldn't shake the feeling that despite her fears, she was finally beginning to reclaim her narrative. But just as Jake's story approached its climax, a sudden crash interrupted them from the living room, throwing everything they had begun to discover into chaos once again. What new challenge awaited them? Maggie's heart lurched at the sound of the crash, the fragile hold she had on her emotions wavering. A mixture of dread and determination surged through her. This was not just about Jake's revelations anymore. There was something seismic unfolding, and she had to confront it head-on. "Emma!" Her voice rang clear, propelling her into the living room, propelled by instinct and the primal need to protect her daughter. The image of Jake, caught between his past and the potential for a fractured future, remained anchored in her mind, but she couldn't let that detain her. She needed to be the type of mother Emma deserved, one who feared nothing when it came to safeguarding her. As she rounded the corner, a sense of urgency coiled tightly within her. The living room, typically warm and inviting, felt foreign and chaotic. A table lamp lay shattered, pieces sprawled like debris from a battle. Emma was huddled in the corner, eyes wide and glistening with tears. "Mom, it was an accident," Emma stuttered, trying to make sense of the chaos. Maggie's immediate focus shifted from the mess to her daughter. "Are you hurt?" she asked, her heart racing as she crouched beside her to inspect for injuries. Disarray could always be managed, but the well-being of her child was paramount. "I've fine," Emma exclaimed, swiping at her tears, her voice trembling between fear and indignation. "I just knocked it over while I was playing." The tension in Maggie's shoulders eased slightly, but the anxiety lingered. She needed to show Emma that the world was often daunting, yet she still had agency. "Accidents happen. Let's clean this up together," she encouraged, attempting to instill a sense of order amidst the chaos. As they began to pick up the pieces, Maggie's mind wandered back to Jake. She felt an almost reckless urge to confront whatever lay beneath his facade. In that moment, she realized she didn't have just her family to protect. She needed to equip Emma with resilience tools for navigating not only their current family turmoil, but the unpredictable world outside. An idea flickered, encouraging her creativity to pour into her parenting approach. Once the immediate situation calmed, she proposed a family meeting, where they could openly talk about fears and honesty. It was time for her to cultivate a home where emotional bravery prevailed over the unsettling truths that lurked in the shadows. Later that evening, the weight of Jake's stories loomed over her as they sat together, the remnants of their earlier confrontation still palpable. Maggie felt empowered but uncertain about how to weave these new complexities into their family. "Jake," she started, pushing down the urge to retreat into silence, "I think we need to open the floor for more discussions." Emma's accidental crash today, the chaos, it's a symbol of how we all feel right now. We have to confront what's lying broken on the floor. Jake's gaze softened, but his face still held the tensions of his secrets. It was now or never. "Can we all meet and share what we're scared of? Together?" she proposed, her voice steady. "Even if the truth isn't pretty, We're stronger together. After a moment's silence, he nodded, but Maggie sensed a lingering hesitance. She braced herself for the coming family meeting, feeling the mantle of leadership settle on her shoulders. But as she turned to gather her thoughts, Jake suddenly shifted in his seat, the intensity of his expression sharpening. There's something else you need to know, something I never told you. Something that could change everything. The air crackled with tension, and Maggie felt her pulse quicken. The revelations she had been waiting for now stood raw before her, bigger than any broken lamp or family chaos. Don't hold back, she urged, her voice steady yet laced with the urgency of their situation. The moment of truth had arrived, and with it, the potential to forge a life anew from the rubble of their uncertainties. Maggie's heart thudded in her chest, a fierce drumbeat that punctuated the thick silence. Jake's words hung in the air like a shroud, heavy and ominous, and she felt the weight of the unspoken truths pressing against her ribcage. She was on the precipice of a revelation that could uproot everything she believed, everything she thought she knew about the life she had built with Jake and Emma. What do you mean? What is it? She pressed, the urgency in her voice cutting through the tension. Emily's safety was still at the forefront of her mind, and she couldn't afford to let this moment slip away. Jake cleared his throat, the shadows in his expression deepening. It's about my past, Maggie. There are things I've kept hidden, he began, but Maggie could see the flicker of hesitation in his eyes. She was done waiting. Done with secrets. Tell me now, she insisted, a note of steel creeping into her tone. The determination she felt didn't just bubble up. It surged through her, a resolute wave ready to break over the dam built by years of silence. Jake shifted, his hands gripping the edge of his chair as if he were about to topple over. Before I met you, there was someone else, someone I promised to protect. And I failed her, he admitted, vulnerability spilling from his voice. That's why I've always been so guarded. I wanted to shield you both from the chaos in my life. A chill crept down Maggie's spine. What happened? She asked cautiously, but inside, she steeled herself, preparing for whatever revelations awaited her. She was my sister, he muttered, his voice low. She got involved with some dangerous people. I thought I could get her out without getting hurt, but I was too late. They took her away from me. I wish it had been me instead. The admission hit Maggie with the force of a tidal wave, washing away the comfort of their shared life. The jagged edges of grief, remorse, and protection cut deeply. It made sense, she realized, why Jake had always been so tethered to the past, his emotional scars creating barriers against intimacy. And yet, here he was, standing at the crossroads of a choice she could help him navigate. But, why was that a secret? She questioned, her mind racing. You didn't think I deserved to know? The hurt seeped through her words, and Maggie felt a flicker of anger mixed with empathy. You have to understand this isn't just about me. It's about the danger it could bring back into our lives, Jake replied, desperation creeping into his tone. I didn't want to drag you or Emma into this darkness. Jake, we are already in the darkness, she said, frustration sharp in her voice. Ignoring it won't make it go away. We have to face it together. Maggie felt the words catch in the back of her throat as unease settled deeper within her, balancing on the razor's edge of fear and determination. She had fought too hard for this family, for a semblance of normalcy. To let ghosts from the past threaten to unravel it all. But what I need now, she continued, her voice steadier, infusing it with resolve, is to know how you plan to protect us. Not just from them but from the weight of your past haunting us every day. For a moment, silence reigned. Jake met her eyes, the conflict written plainly across his face. The revelation had unlocked a door to communication they'd both craved. Yet behind it lurked a maze of complications. She could feel the distance between them slowly diminishing as they stepped into the light of understanding, but it was fragile, more like glass than solid ground. I need your support to confront the people involved. I thought I could handle it alone, but it's clear I can't. His voice was barely above a whisper now, each word a lifeline tossed into the turbulent waters of their future. Maggie's heart raced at the thought of action, of standing together against the shadows that threatened them. But with every step forward came the burden of responsibility. As Jake's secret unveiled layers of complexity, Maggie realized they were standing on the brink of a decision that would define their family's journey. With Emma oblivious, and lurking dangers on the horizon. It was imperative they act decisively. "Let us do it then," she declared, her voice resolute. "We'll confront this together." Yet as she spoke, a tight knot of fear twisted in her gut. What if the confrontation only unleashed more shadows? Before she could spiral into those thoughts, Jake's expression revealed a flicker of hope mixed with lingering doubt. "Thank you, Maggie. But we can't tell Emma yet." "Of course," she murmured, but her mind was racing. The weight of parenting while delving into Jake's dark past became clear. How would they navigate this minefield? Their family meeting loomed closer, and with it, the stakes rose higher than ever. Jack's full truth was still shrouded in uncertainty, but their journey together had become an intricate dance of trust and survival. As her mind spun with the consequences of their choices, another debilitating thought emerged. What if the danger lurking in Jake's past was closer than they'd imagined? The next morning, the first light of dawn crept through the curtains, bathing the room in soft, golden hues that felt at odds with the turmoil brewing inside Maggie. She wrestled with the weight of the impending confrontation. The gravity of knowing Jake's past threatened to unravel their carefully constructed life like a frayed tapestry. Breakfast time arrived, but the familiar rhythm felt disrupted. Emma hummed a cheery tune, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing around her. Maggie glanced at Jake, who sat across from her, his face carved from stone, lost in thought. Should they break the news to Emma about the darkness hovering around them? Or would that only serve to burden her young shoulders? Each fleeting second felt heavy with unspoken truths. "Do you think we should talk to her?" Maggie asked, keeping her voice low, casting an anxious glance toward Emma. Jake's response came after a long pause, the tension coiling tighter in the space between them. "She doesn't need to worry about this yet. We need to figure out our next steps first." Maggie felt anger rise in her throat, a surge of protectiveness for their daughter bubbling over the caution etched on Jake's face. Is keeping her in the dark doing her any favors? This affects her too. What if they find us? We cannot pretend everything is fine while we're ashamed of the truth. Jake met her gaze, his eyes a swirling storm of emotions. "I am not ashamed. I will face it, but I won't involve her until we're ready." The irony of his assertion wasn't lost on her. His past had already seeped into their lives, one secret festering into another. "And if it's too late by the time we decide? The danger doesn't wait for us to be ready." The tension in her voice broke through the hesitance that had clouded their breakfast table. Jake nodded slowly, but uncertainty throbbed in his expression. This was the moment of truth, the time to redefine roles and responsibilities within their family dynamic. "Maggie," he said, his voice dropping to a near whisper, "I need you to trust me on this. I'll protect both of you, but my past is my fight. I've carried this for long enough." His words resonated within her, a stark reminder of the symbolic burden he'd chosen to carry. Yet the battle fought in silence might lead to tragic consequence. She had to rise for her own battles, and they had to confront danger as a united front. "We can't wait," she decided, urgency propelling her forward. "I need to do something to push against this feeling of helplessness." "I have a plan," Jake said, each word measured, almost rehearsed. "I want you to prepare. I'll need your strength, your support, but I can't rush into this. There are things I still need to uncover." "What kind of plan?" Maggie pushed, leaning into her role. She was no longer just a spectator. She was a player ready to cultivate knowledge. Jake inhaled deeply, collecting his thoughts. "I need to revisit the last place I saw my sister. There are unanswered questions and unresolved ties to the people who took her from me. I'll need to do it under the radar." Maggie's heart raced as realization struck. "You want to confront the people involved directly? This isn't just about telling them you're back in town, is it?" "No," Jake said, a shadow creeping into his voice. "I intend to find out what happened, and if there's a threat still lingering. We can't start controlling our lives until I confront what lurking shadows are left." Maggie thought about their odds, what lay ahead for them. But in her chest, she felt a flicker of empowerment. She would explore resources, consider strategies. Together, they could forge a path through this darkness that had plagued their lives for too long. With newfound energy, Maggie leaned toward her husband. "Let us schedule everything today. We'll prepare. We'll figure out how to protect Emma, while simultaneously facing your past." But I need to know you're honest with me. The moment you try to shield me again, I'll fall apart. Jake's gaze softened, but she could see the steel resolve glinting beneath. I promise no more secrets. It's time. We dismantled the burden of the past for good. Our family deserves that. As they mapped out their strategy, an unspoken understanding hung in the air, a pact forged through loyalty and resilience. But uncertainty loomed larger than ever. With every intention woven into their plans, a darker sense of foreboding threaded their thoughts. Maggie pulled out the notebook she had been using to detail their plan. She began crafting a list, emergencies, contingencies, setting boundaries. The stakes rose with each line she penned. At that moment, she was not just acting as a mother or wife, but as a guardian against the darkness threatening to engulf them. As she signed her name at the bottom of the final page, the reality hit her hard once more. What they were about to uncover might be more destructive than they could ever prepare for. Later that day, as the sun began to set, she received an unexpected text alert, the first signs of trouble from the very shadows they were preparing to confront. What if this escalation was just the beginning of chaos they hoped to avoid? Maggie's breath hitched in her throat as she looked up at Jake, the gravity of the moment crashing down upon them. They had only just started digging into the depths of Jake's dark past, and already it felt as though they were being pulled into a maelstrom, one that would demand all their strength to navigate. How close are they to finding us? She asked, her voice trembling. Too close, Jake replied, his eyes narrowing as determination flickered within. And it's time we made a stand. With the stakes impossibly high, their next move would define everything. Maggie's mind raced, her thoughts a chaotic dance of dread and fierce determination. The air felt thick, electric, with the weight of everything hanging in the balance. Jake's words pierced through her haze. It's time we made a stand. There was no turning back now. They had opened a Pandora's box that couldn't simply be closed. As twilight settled outside, Maggie found herself struggling to catch her breath. The uncertainty of their situation pressed on her chest like a heavy blanket, suffocating yet familiar. She could almost hear the rhythmic pulse of her heart, each beat a silent reminder of the stakes at hand. They were no longer merely preemptively defending against unseen villains. They were at the precipice of potential confrontation, with decisions to be made that could alter the course of their lives forever. Maggie, Jake began, breaking the silence that had enveloped the room. You need to understand that I won't rush into this without a plan. I need to map out every possible response and know what I'm walking into. The last time I was there, I wasn't ready, and I lost everything. Maggie nodded, her heart echoing the sorrow in his voice. Their family had been through more than most, but the thought of what lay behind was daunting. Then let us prepare together. If you're going to confront your past, I need to confront mine as well. What if they come for us before you're ready? Jake's gaze locked onto hers, the urgency reflected in his eyes. This isn't just about me. I need to know you're safe too. A wave of frustration surged within her. Of course it's about safety. But I can't be sidelined while you risk everything. If we're facing threats, I have skills, knowledge. I can help. In that moment, Maggie understood her own strength in a clearer light. She had spent years nurturing her family, but she had also built her professional life, rising through challenges in a male-dominated industry. Strategizing under pressure was a familiar dance for her. It was her time to shine. Okay, she said, her voice steadying. I'll set up a system for us. We'll have alerts for any potential threats, and I'll research the people involved if they're still around, and what they want. Jake's expression shifted, admiration mingling with concern. Just be careful, and don't go too deep on your own. I want you focused on Emma's safety first. Agreed, she replied fervently. But I also need to be informed. I can't allow secrets to gum up the works. You need to be ready to face what's been haunting you. And I need to know how to act if this escalates. If there's any chance of danger, I want to be prepared. That collaborative energy sparked a new sense of resolve between them. They divided their tasks, Jake committing to reconnect with old acquaintances who might provide answers, while Maggie began researching potential connections, old files, documents, and any loose ends left from the past. As she tapped into her network, she encountered a surprising revelation. A name kept surfacing, a former friend of Jake's sister, An individual she had brushed off during her earlier inquiries, but who now loomed large in the shadows of their investigation. What more could this person know? Yet as Maggie dove deeper into that rabbit hole, unease twisted in her stomach. Her instincts warned of layers more complex than she had anticipated, hidden beneath everything that glittered on the surface. What if this name revealed not just answers about Jake's sister, but also untangling webs of betrayal that could ensnare their family as well? Just as she began to unravel this new thread, another text buzzed into her frame of mind, this one bringing a fresh chill to her spine. "I know where you are." Panic ignited, sharp and demanding. Who was watching them? The shadows they had sought to confront were creeping closer, and Maggie felt the pang of urgency flaring once again. They needed to pivot, reassess their plans, and quickly determine their next steps. "Maggie!" Jake called from the other room, urgency etched in his tone. She locked eyes with him across the living room, the truth dawning like a dark cloud overhead. They were already ensnared in a game they hadn't yet chosen to play. They had embarked on this journey with well-meaning intentions, but what if the unfolding turmoil demanded more than they were prepared to give? Would they still come out as a family, or would this spiral into a war that pulled them apart? In this moment of realization, Maggie began to see herself more clearly, not just as a protector, but as a warrior navigating the minefield she had stepped into. Every choice from here on out would be a decision that tested her limits. As they stood locked in this shared understanding, Maggie felt an overwhelming urge to fight for their tomorrow. "Whatever you do, I'm with you," she declared softly. "But we need to be ready for anything, Jake." The decision hung between them, electric and heavy, as they prepared to face the dark unknown, each glance betraying the fragile hope tethered to their definition of family. Maggie felt her heart racing as she and Jake processed the implications of the text. The words echoed in her mind, establishing a grim melody of dread. The shadows they had intended to confront were coalescing into a tangible threat. Each second bled into the next, amplified by the uncertain future that loomed ahead. "First things first, we need to secure our immediate surroundings," Jake declared, pulling her focus from the spiraling thoughts in her head. The urgency transformed into action as they rapidly moved through their small home, checking windows and doors. Maggie's instincts, refined by years of navigating corporate obstacles, kicked in. "Let us set up a lookout rotation," she suggested, her mind shifting gears. "We can't afford to be blindsided again." It took mere seconds for her to realize this suggestion wasn't just a protective move. It was a reflection of her ability to lead under stress, an ability she needed to harness. As Jake secured the final latch on the door, Maggie made her way back to the living room, where she opened her laptop, flickering to life as if it sensed her determination. The familiar glow signaled not just a channel for information, but her transition into a role she was more than ready for, a strategist. "Whoever sent that text knows our routine, which means we have to change it," she analyzed aloud while scrolling through her previous research. The name from earlier began to anchor her thoughts, taking precedence over the chaotic emotions swirling through her. This friend of Jake's sister. Let us look into her background, any connections she had while Jake's sister was alive. Jake appeared beside her, an unspoken alliance strengthening their bond. He nodded, but his face still held a trace of worry. "We'll have to balance this with keeping Emma oblivious to any danger." "I want to compromise her peace." "Agreed," Maggie replied sharply, appreciating his protective instinct for their daughter, even as the fire of determination within her shot up like a wildfire. "But we can't just wait for something to happen. We need to act not recklessly, but decisively. That's where my skills come into play." As the evening stretched into night, Maggie's fingers danced across the keyboard, filtering through digital documents, social media threads, and contacts buried in archives. What she unearthed chiseled a portrait of a life fraught with secrets. The deeper she went, the clearer it became that Jake's sister carried burdens heavier than she had ever imagined, leading to larger implications that wrapped around their current predicament. Then, amidst a gathering storm of revelations, her phone buzzed again, a message. The clarity she had been seeking morphed into a knot of anxiety when she recognized the name at the center of it all. This wasn't just a coincidence. Maggie's heart raced as she pieced together clues. noticing connections between the former friend and various unsettling events that surrounded Jake's sister's demise. "Maggie, you okay?" Jake's concerned tone snapped her back to reality. "Yeah," she replied, though her words felt hollow. "I just thought of something unsettling." She hesitated, knowing the words could potentially fracture the faint hope they clung to. This friend might have motive, or even be part of whatever transpired back then. The implications lingered in the air, a thickening tension born of unspoken fears. It was a revelation that weighed heavily in Maggie's mind, pulling her deeper into the morass of Jake's past. She needed to tread carefully, balancing the tightrope of truth and its repercussions. "Then we can't let this go unaddressed. We split tasks again. You'll dig into that friend, find out everything you can." Jake's voice turned resolute, a shadow of determination behind his worry. "And I'll gather intel on any associates of hers. We need to identify potential leakers or collaborators." Maggie nodded, feeling the surge of purpose rekindle within her. Every step they took forward was a step toward reclaiming control over their lives. As they pored over files, memories, and digital trails, in separate grips of their tasks, Maggie realized this wasn't merely about survival anymore. Where they were headed now required both of them to confront their realities and face the monsters of their pasts, standing firmly together. But with every piece of information surfacing, a new doubt lingered. What if confronting the truth unveiled truths too dangerous to face? What if they weren't just fighting for their safety, but actively awakening a sleeping threat? When the night wore heavy upon them, the sound of their combined breath and urgency filled the room. Maggie's jaw clenched as she locked eyes with Jake, exposing the truth muted in her heart. They were at the edge of the abyss, staring into dark waters that felt narcotic and beckoning. "Whatever we uncover, we confront it together," she resolved, locking her gaze with Jake's. "But every conversation, every secret has consequences, and we must be ready for those too." As dusk quieted the world outside, a chilling realization crept through Maggie's mind. They had drawn closer to answers, but they were also stepping into a fire that could lead them further down a path of betrayal. With one last flicker of determination, she prepared for the uncertain confrontation that awaited them. What truths would they discover when they turned their search outward, and how far were they willing to go when faced with revelations that could unravel the very fabric of their family? Maggie stood at the threshold of a pivotal moment, the weight of everything she had uncovered pressing heavily on her shoulders. The night had unfurled into an abyss of uncertainty, and yet in the depths of her being, she felt a flicker of clarity emerging from the chaos. Confronting the shadows of her family's past was no longer simply about unearthing secrets. It was about crafting a future fortified by truth, however jagged that truth might be. The following day, as dawn broke, illuminating their quiet living room with a golden glow, Maggie prepared for the momentous family meeting they had both anticipated and dreaded. She meticulously arranged the space, ensuring that everything was in place, calm yet inviting. The air was thick with tension and anticipation, but also a burgeoning courage that welled within her. She was not just stepping into the role of an investigator. She was claiming her power within her family, preparing to weave an inclusive narrative out of the debris of their pasts. Emma entered, blissfully unaware of the gravity of the conversation looming ahead. Her laughter was the sunshine Maggie so desperately wanted to protect. In that moment, Maggie felt a profound need to shield her daughter from the burdens that had begun to entangle their lives. "Mama, look at this," Emma exclaimed as she held up her artwork, bright colors splattered across the page, innocence radiating from her smile. It tugged at Maggie's heart, reaffirming her resolve. This was a moment of fortitude, a time to illuminate the shadows rather than extinguish the light. "Sweetheart, can we all sit down together for a minute? I'd like to talk." Maggie gestured toward the couch, her voice steady but gentle. The seriousness of her demeanor pulled Emma's attention, and she nodded eagerly, settling in while Jake joined them, his expression tight with apprehension. "Is everything okay, Mom?" Emma asked, her youthful curiosity sparking a mix of pride and sadness within Maggie. This was the very future she dreamed of, preserving a future rooted in honesty, even when it came with discomfort. With Jake by her side, Maggie took a deep breath, the moment stretching into eternity as she prepared to breach the barriers between past and present. "There are some things that have come to light," and it's important that we all share in this journey together. She glanced at Jake, and they exchanged a silent understanding, the cadence of their partnership palpable. Life isn't always perfect, sweetie. We all face challenges, but it's the love within our family that gives us strength to overcome them. Maggie continued, her eyes searching Emma's. She wanted to shield Emma from the storm ahead while also empowering her with gems of wisdom, forging a future where honesty thrived even amid adversity. With each word, Maggie felt her confidence solidifying, breaking free from the chains of fear that had previously hindered her. It was time to illustrate to Emma that love wasn't devoid of struggles, but rather it flourished when coupled with unity. The family fabric was woven not with picture-perfect moments, but through resilience. Jake chimed in, there are parts of my past that I should have shared with you both, and while it's complex, it's what makes our bond even stronger. He explained his sister's story, acknowledging the threads of pain and unresolved emotions that had haunted him for far too long. Emma listened silently, processing the revelations as a swirl of emotions coursed through the atmosphere. Maggie's heart raced, fearing the ripple effects of these truths. But in this delicate moment of vulnerability, she also felt a powerful reclamation of agency. They were facing the darkness together. We all have shadows that linger, Maggie added, but if we choose to confront them, they no longer have power over us. We're a team, and together we can rise above no matter how rocky the road. The silence settled in heavy, but there was a spark within Emma's eyes that signaled understanding. The threads of honesty woven together created an unbreakable bond, like glue, binding their family closer. Finally, Emma spoke up, I get it. Sometimes things are hard. But you both are my family, and I know we can face whatever comes together. Her tone reflected the love they had cultivated in safer times, and it unraveled Maggie's lingering fears, knitting them back with hope. The air shifted, creating a space where openness empowered their collective strength. Cooperation fortified their family. In that moment, Maggie realized she had not only confronted Jake's past, but had anchored her own transformation, recognizing her propensity for leadership and strength in navigating emotional storms. As they conferred on plans forward, formulating strategies to ensure their safety and clarity moving ahead, the darkness didn't seem as insurmountable. They had ignited a flame of courage, lighting a path entwined with trust and mutual resolve. Maggie felt exhilarated. For the first time, she embraced her role not only as a protector, but as a proactive participant in her family's narrative. The weight of her journey, though heavy at times, had sculpted her into a warrior unfrozen by fear, a mother who could stand firm in truth. The echoes of laughter began to resurge as Emma shared her latest artistic endeavors and tales of school exploits. Jake and Maggie, now aligned in their purpose, crafted laughter intertwined with serious discussions of resilience and preparedness. Their family took shape around the troublesome truths, fortifying it for the challenges that loomed. And as dusk settled outside, twinkling stars blinked knowingly at their new resolve, a family no longer shadowed by the burdens of history, but woven together with understanding, compassion, and above all, love. This was the moment when Maggie finally conquered the demons of doubt. She was prepared to embrace the unknown, ready to protect what they had built, and above all, proud of the transformation she had sparked not just in herself, but in her family as well, signaling the dawn of a new chapter, their chapter. Now don't wait just one more second. You need to subscribe now to the channel to stay updated with more exclusive emotional stories that touch the very core of our human experience. Leave a like immediately to feed the algorithm and help us grow. Comment below with your thoughts on this powerful transformation and theories about what you think is next. And share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who truly need to see this inspiring conclusion. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the urgency and the importance of supporting the channel through each action.